What is going on, guys? It's the MaD Dragon. We are back with our third and final preview of the first weekend of the Six Nations 2021. This is going to be between Wales and Ireland. For those people who haven't seen these before, I check on a game of rugby of the teams that are going to be playing and check out some of the team sheets named, and we go through who we think is going to do well, who we think is going to do probably a little bit poorer, and then we go for a final score prediction on who we think is going to win. I'm going to play as my created Wales team because it's slightly lower rated, and we'll go up against Ireland. I thought it made a bit more of a fun game in the background to play while we're checking them out. Let's crack on. Let's check out these teams. Alrighty, we're going to get this game kicked off with Gareth Anscombe. That's how long it's been since I've played as this Wales team on Rugby 20. That Gareth Anscombe is still my chosen fly half at this time. So seeing as we're starting off as Wales, let's start off talking about the Wales team. Of course, they haven't had the best Six Nations. They had the longest losing streak in like 10 years. Their last game, of course, they lost to Scotland in that final game of the Six Nations, which was the first time they've lost in Wales to Scotland in an awfully long time. Wales didn't do very well either, really going into that Autumn Nations Cup. They played relatively well against Georgia, actually putting on a very youthful, uncapped team and managed to hold Georgia to 0. They did lose to Ireland, they did lose to England, and then they went on to beat Italy pretty convincingly, but only in that second half. The first half was a little bit up and over the place, but I think they will be definitely looking to try and improve. I think Wayne Pivac will be expecting an awful lot from this team. Not that I really agree with coaches losing their job if their team plays a little bit poorer, but I definitely think he's going to be getting close to that position. I don't think he can afford another 5th position in the Six Nations because I think his job could be up for questioning. So he's going to want to get some wins under his belt, starting off with this Ireland game if he can get it. So checking out the team, as most of the teams have done this year, actually, they've made some new graphics. Loving this. So let's check out this front row. Wyn Jones, Ken Owens, Tom Francis. That's a pretty decent front row, actually, considering that there's been an awful lot of injuries and people out and so on. This is actually a pretty decent front row. Ken Owens, of course, is got to be the standout hooker in Wales at the minute. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I did see a game against Cardiff Blues where the Scarlets were all over the place, having Ryan Elias try and take over. As soon as Ken Owens came on, he steadies that ship completely. I think it's a pretty decent front row. Hopefully they'll be able to compete at scrum time. Wales' set plays haven't been the best through the Autumn Nations Cup and even going back into the Six Nations, to be honest. Adam Beard making his way back into the team. Seeing him at number 4 is going to be real nice to have him back in. Of course, Jake Ball moving over to Australia soon, so it'd be nice to get a bit of time for Adam Beard to try and take the number 4 shirt. Alan Wynne will always be at number 5, the captain, just holding strong. He's had a couple of issues in more recent games. I know he's the most capped player, but he does have quite a few penalties blown against him. I'm thinking hopefully his game can improve just a little bit, take on the captaincy, lead from the front a little bit more. Dan Lydiate is back in at 6. What a great time to see Dan Lydiate back in. It feels like a very old school team. I think you go back about 5 years and sort of see this team on the go. Dan Lydiate has been doing absolutely brilliantly at the Ospreys, and I think it should really be going off form how well people are playing. Dan Lydiate's been showing off he can do a lot and allow Justin Tipuric then to move to his number 7. Justin Tipuric, I say this every time I ever mention his name, I do think he's one of the best flankers in the world in terms of turnover, in terms of running ability, and just in terms of work ethic. I think he's absolutely superb. He's definitely a bit of a standout in this Wales team. Talupe Faletau taking the number 8 shirt. Really hoping he can manage to have a good tournament. He did have a really good game in that final game against Italy in the Autumn Nations Cup, but there's a bit of a difference between playing a bit of a tired Italy team at the end of a tournament compared with a very strong Irish team at the start of a Six Nations. So I'm really hoping he can have a good game and make sure that he keeps that number 8 shirt under his belt. We know how good Toby Faletau can be, and hopefully he manages to keep up to date with some of his form going on. Number 9, bit of a switch up, wasn't expecting this one. Thomas Williams, he was in my Wales team as my number 9. I think Thomas Williams is probably the best scrum half in Wales, but I'm surprised that Pivac hasn't gone for Gareth Davis. I know how much he loves to have Gareth Davis on, so nice to see Thomas Williams getting a good start. Dan Biggar at 10. Of course, Dan Biggar is probably still the standout number 10. Callum Sheedy and Jared Evans have actually done okay, but I think Dan Biggar is still currently holding that position. The centres, let's check out the centres. This is where I would actually disagree with this team a little bit. They've got Johnny Williams on, absolutely belongs in that 12 shirt. I think he's superb in that inside centre channel. He is so aggressive. He's really taken over from Hadley Parkes. We don't even feel like we're missing Hadley Parkes with Johnny Williams on the pitch, so really good to see him in. But number 13, putting George North in. Now this is going to be a bit of a contentious issue, but George North has been playing absolutely brilliantly at the Ospreys recently. He's been out of form for a couple of of years, but he's finally come back in. He's getting to the top of his game again, but he's doing it in that 14 shirt. And I have no idea why, if someone is in great performance standards, why you would then decide to put them in an international team and change their position entirely. To me, George North isn't very good in that 13 position, and it's hard for him. He's had to change positions completely. Changing from a winger to a centre is a very different game, methodology and things you have to get your head around. I think he's brilliant on that 14 wing, and for me, I would have definitely put George North on this right wing, keep him in form, keep him doing well, and maybe put Nick Tompkins in at that 13 channel. That's where my first disagreement would come in. Number 11, they've gone for Amos. For anyone who doesn't know, of course, Josh Adams has now gone out. He went to a family event and broke lockdown rules, so he's no longer in this Wales team for the first couple of games. He's decided to do that, but it gives Amos a chance. Amos is one of those people that I never really see doing as best as he can do. He's a great player and he does so well at club level, but he just doesn't seem to have that spark when he gets into the international jersey. Whether pressure gets to him a little bit or whether people just don't give him enough room to work with, I just don't see him stand out 100%. So I think what I would do here, Louis Rees-Zammit is doing really well at the minute. What I would have done here is I would have moved Rees-Zammit over to that left wing, given him that chance at 11 now that Josh Adams is out. I'd have moved George North into the 14 channel where he's playing really well at club level, and I'd have put Nick Tompkins on at 13. But that's the only real change I would make there. And then Halfpenny, of course, filling in 15 because Liam Williams is banned because he got a red card at club level. So the Wales team are sort of short-sighting themselves a little bit, so it's going to make it a little bit tough. Quickly we will look at the replacements just before we move on to the Irish team. Elliot D, really looking forward to seeing him. I think he's playing really well at the minute. Rodri Jones is going to be coming in, so looking forward to seeing him. Leon Brown we haven't got to see an awful lot of recently, so I'm sure he will make an appearance in that second half for Tom Francis. Will Rowland, I imagine, will come on at 4 at some point for Adam Beard to try and see who can be the preferred lock going in now that we know Jake Ball probably won't be in the team next year. Josh Navidi, I think, is a superb bench player to have here. Coming in, he can play 6, 7 or 8, so any of those players we're going to get tired, not performing well, he can come on. Most likely he'll probably come on for Dan Lydiate. Dan Lydiate still has never really been that guy who plays for the full 80 minute. He can do probably a solid 60, and I do see the fatigue begins kicking, whereas Falatau and Tipuric do seem to be able to do the full 80. Gareth Davis, of course, will come on later. I imagine he'll be going for some sniping try runs if he can get them in that second half. Callum Sheedy will definitely be coming on for Dan Bigg. I was really impressed with Callum Sheedy in the Autumn Nations Cup, so really looking forward to seeing a little bit more of him in a very aggressive 10. I know Dan Bigg is quite similar in his style, but Callum Sheedy to me reminds me a bit more of like a younger sort of Entomac. Very aggressive, good on kicking, bit of a running number 10, so looking forward to seeing that. And then of course finally Tompkins, who I imagine will come on for George North at some point. Maybe even Pivac will do my suggestion of moving them round. Maybe they will do a complete switch around when Tompkins comes on. Maybe North will then move to the right wing, Rees-Zammit will move to the left wing, and Amos will come off for Nick Tompkins. Maybe they'll move North straight to that left wing. We'll have to see what happens. But overall, it's a pretty strong team for Wales, considering that they do have a couple of people missing. A couple of people have removed themselves from the team by being a bit ridiculous. So it's not a terrible team. Wales are going to be looking to improve, and in all honesty, this is probably a relatively decent team. If you went back to the World Cup, you'd probably see a lot of these players in the World Cup team, and there should be no reason Wales don't think they can win. However, in my head, I am thinking this Irish team is coming in with some big boys into the team. So, speaking of which, let's move on and talk about this Irish team. So Ireland coming into this tournament, I think, will be coming in with a bit of a bounce in their step, actually. I don't think they had the worst Autumn Nations Cup. I know they lost to England in the pool stages, but they were quite down on a couple of men, a few injuries, a couple of people missing, and a couple of key people at that. So I think they're probably not going to feel too bad about that loss to England. They didn't perform 100% well against Georgia, but they, of course, did get the win, and they managed to beat Wales. So they're doing pretty well. They went into that final. They beat Scotland. I think, realistically, Ireland will be looking to improve. That was quite a weak team they brought into that Autumn Nations Cup. I think they'll be very disappointed with the last Six Nations they had, having lost to France in that final game, which basically cost them the Six Nations last year. So they're definitely going to want to come in with a little bit more force. So with that being said, let's check out this Irish team. And one thing that stands out to me very quickly, for any of you who saw my Ireland team announcement video that I did, where I basically created my best 15, I am almost correct here. I feel really proud of myself. There's only about 2 or 3 changes. That's mainly because a lot of people are interchangeable, and of course Quinn Rue has gone out, unfortunately, which does allow the way for James Ryan to come in from my team that I didn't have in. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid team. Healy, Herring, Porter, I think, is the best front row for Ireland at the minute. They're all huge boys. They're all great scrummagers. They're all great tacklers. I think they're going to be doing really well. Tigburn coming in. Thank you for the pronunciation advice. I used to call him Tajburn. I now know it's Tigburn. It will be Tigburn from now on. And James Ryan, 2 big boy locks. I'm actually really big fan of Tigburn being able to play the flanker or lock position. I think he's superb. He did so well playing at the Scarlets. Looking forward to seeing a bit more from him. Peter O'Mahony absolutely belongs there. I think he had a fantastic tournament. Really thought he was going to be fizzling out of the game, and he really stood up in that Autumn Nations Cup. Van der Fleer, absolutely superb again. Number 7, I think sometimes he plays 6 or 7. He can sort of interchange, but again, heavy work rate. And of course, CJ Stander in that back row. Just off the back of the scrum, just such a dangerous runner. Everyone knows that in the back of the scrum, if Conor Murray doesn't pick that up, CJ Stander will run with that ball, and you do need to send about 2 men to tackle him. So overall, 1 to 8, absolutely solid. I think this is the best 1 to 8 Ireland can really come up with at the minute. I think this is brilliant. I think their set plays are going to be really, really strong, and I think that Welsh scrum is in for a real tough day trying to deal with this. Moving on to the backs, Conor Murray, of course, is going to take that 9 shirt. I thought maybe they would have gone for Gibson Park. They've, given him a bit of a chance to play one of the higher end teams, but they've gone for Conor Murray. They can't afford to lose this first game. They know it's going to be tough. They are coming to Wales. The team that Wales are putting out is at a high standard. They just haven't really gelled that well together in the previous year. So if they can work well together team chemistry wise, maybe this will be a really dangerous team for them to come up with. They're not taking any chances. Sexton coming back in at number 10. Of course, unfortunately, we don't get to see people like Billy Burns coming back in straight off the bat. Sexton is always going to retain that position. The centre partnership I'm really happy with. Robbie Henshaw, Gary Ringrose, I think both of them are great centres. They have lost that little sort of strike runner technique they used to have with Bundyaki, just runs at the line face first. But I think both of them are very talented players. Looking forward to seeing both of them pick some real good lines, especially when you've got good playmakers on the field with them. I think they're going to do really well. James Lowe is going to take that left wing shirt. Absolutely had a great tournament. Think he's really proven himself. Got the try against Wales, actually, in their game. So looking forward to seeing something from him. Keith Earls taking that 14 shirt. Wow, nice to see Keith Earls is still making his way into this Irish team. I thought Keenan would have taken that right wing, but Keith Earls obviously standing out. And of course, Keenan taking that fullback, who I thought they would have gone for Jordan Lama, who remains on the bench. But overall, this 1 to 15 in Ireland is looking huge. And actually looking back at my prediction video before the teams were actually announced of the whole tournament, I basically went off of previous form and what I thought generally about rugby is maybe up for question now. I think this Irish team is actually pretty massive. I'm beginning to wonder whether Ireland, if they can sustain this team and they can get this first win against Wales, whether this Ireland team could be looking at going forward and trying to win the Six Nations. I'm not 100% sure, but we will have to see what they can come up with. Looking at the replacements are absolutely fantastic. Ireland looking like they've got a real deep squad here. Kelleher, Kilcoyne and Tadhg Furlong, I think, are superb players to bring on. That's almost a potential for a starting front 3 there going in. I think that's superb. Ian Henderson, Will Connors, 2 very strong lads. I'm sure we'll see some game time from them. Jameson Gibson Park hasn't had a lot of game time, so looking forward to seeing him having a bit more time. I would like to see him start some games, actually, rather than having Conor Murray, but obviously they don't want to lose this first game. Billy Burns, I thought, had a really good Autumn Nations Cup, so looking forward to seeing a bit more from him. And Jordan Lama, who, of course, I think will be aiming to try and get a try later on in the games, showing off a bit more work from him. So overall, I think Ireland have got a superb team. I think they're going to really bring this to the Wales team. In terms of prediction, what do I think is going to happen here? Realistically, I think this could be either team trying to win if they turn up on the day and they manage to gel well together. But to me, Ireland just have the stronger team. I think they've got a real depth in squad, especially with those replacements coming in. So my prediction for this game, I'm going to call it's going to be an Ireland win, and I think Ireland are going to win by 10. I think they're just going to be able to get out of reach of Wales. I know Wales has a very strong team coming into this, but I think Ireland will take control of this game. They've got a very defensive setup along with some key attackers, but I think they'll try and hold the ball, try and control the game, control the pace, and see what they can work from there. But what do you guys think? Have I got the correct call there? Do you guys disagree? Make sure you drop it down in the comments who you're going to be supporting, who you want to win. Remember, we've also got the Fantasy League going on at the same time. For anyone who wants to join just before this tournament starts, make sure you join. I will drop all the codes and stuff down in the description for you guys to help find it easier. It is on Superbru. It's going to be a bunch of fun. A couple of people have already joined, which I'm really happy that people fancy joining in and having a bit of a community together. I think it's great that we all enjoy rugby so much. I hope you've all enjoyed this one, guys. I can't wait for the Six Nations. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.